Manufacturers Association. The Tire Recycling Foundation is an organization of the broad stakeholder group, manufacturers, distributors, retailers, collectors, recyclers, end users, all working together to grow end-of-life tire markets. The U.S. Tire Manufacturers Association is the 11 companies that manufacture on-the-road tires here in the United States. It's our Washington, D.C. trade association. This is our second in a series of webinars featuring perspectives from diverse experts and visionary leaders who are driving innovation and developing powerful end-use markets in the field of tire recycling. Tire recycling is a pillar of sustainability, innovation, and economic growth in the United States. According to our USTMA 2023 ELT Management Report, tires remain one of the most recycled and reclaimed products in the country. But end-of-life tire generation continues to outpace recycling and consumption into end-use markets. We believe a powerful solution is the expansion of ELT markets like rubber-modified asphalt, tire-derived aggregate, and relevant to today's topic, molded and extruded consumer products. Expanding markets for recycled tire products not only leads to better ELT management, but also creates substantial economic and environmental benefits, including raw material savings, landfill diversion, and emission savings due to repurposing materials. In this series, we're addressing the benefits of ELT recycling and providing actionable steps and resources. We want to spur action among policymakers, DOTs, and municipal leaders, civil engineers, recyclers, and other across the broad tire value chain so you can apply the lessons learned and advance ELT management in your own markets. On today's webinar, we'll be discussing the market for commercial products made from recycled tires, also called molded and extruded products. These include automotive parts and mats, garbage cans, flooring tiles, jersey barriers, sometimes now called Colorado barriers, other surface materials we encounter in everyday life. Further, accessibility products, landscaping services. I mentioned mats of all types, pavers, tiles, weed maps, agricultural mats, cow mats, roof pavers, and landscaping. Flooring of all types, and I've recently been on interesting flooring at ski resorts, on stairs, very difficult stairways, and in exercise areas. Sign weights, traffic cone weights. This market is fueled by innovations like new processing technologies, higher quality rubber and odor reduction, paired with strong global and market projects. Molded and extruded products are a perfect example of how recycled tires can deliver practical and sustainable solutions at scale. Here with me today to dive into the ins and outs of this market are four experts that we've been able to bring on board to talk today, including Bruce Bart, the Director of Product and Market Development at Liberty Tire Recycling, largest tire recycler in North America. Bruce is very experienced and knows equipment and this material very well. Jeff Olson, the co-founder and business development leader at Pretread, who got started with an amazing Colorado grant for over $11 million, thought to be the largest recycling grant in the state for this type of purpose. We got Tim Vanderheiden, the president and CEO of Safe Path Products. They're the largest rubber molded manufacturing facilities in Northern California. And Tim has over 30 years experience. And coming to us from far away across the pond tonight in Europe is Bo Barber, the Chief Growth and Innovation Officer of Ecor International. Ecor Athletic is the global leader in performance flooring, both indoors and outdoors. And as a company, they can demonstrate circularity with their products. So we've got quite a panel to discuss this today. Please note, we plan to address questions at the end of the session as time permits. And we ask that you use the Q&A feature in this webinar to submit your questions for the panel throughout the discussion. And finally, we'll be making additional information and resources available to all attendees in a newly created Knowledge Hub on the Tire Recycling Foundation's website. That's tirerecyclingfoundation.org. So without further ado, let's bring our panel into this discussion. Each of our panelists specializes in using recycled tire rubber, that's ground tire rubber, for molded and extruded products and other end-use materials. Given this expertise, can you tell us why ground rubber is such a good fit for the molded and extruded product market specifically? Bruce, let's start with you.
Okay, thanks, John. If I had to pick two main reasons, I would say number one is just the sheer volume of the material that we have available through our recycling efforts. The amount of rubber and wire / metal that come from the tires is, far exceeds any other type of recycled materials. The second one would be that comparable to the virgin materials that we're often replacing, whether it be virgin plastics, virgin rubbers, TPOs, TPs, the rubber is much more cost effective, especially if you're producing big, heavy parts or extruded items. So I would say that'd be the two primary examples.
So initially, it boils down to cost and availability. We'll get to performance attributes next. Bo, is that true for you, cost and availability?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we've really tried to dig into is focusing on that supply chain of rubber, and it is a wildly available product. I think we really do focus on the characteristics of rubber itself. I think in a lot of cases, we think of this as a reclaimed material. I tend to really focus on the unique performance characteristics of it and how it can make another product, another finished product, a better version of itself in a lot of cases. And that allows us and hopefully the entire industry at large to start garnering more value for the products that we're making because of their performance characteristics, not just the fact that they're using a reclaimed material.
Thanks, Bo. Jeff, what are the key factors in why ground tire rubber is such a great fit for pre-tread? You're muted, Jeff.
Thank you, John. I think it's pretty simple. We compete head to head with a concrete on the road and plastic, off-road. I think the performance, you've heard it a little bit. For us, which barrier would you rather run into, a rubber barrier or a concrete barrier? It's kind of, as simple as that. But for us, we have a collision performance sort of benefit and advantage, and we bring in something to our niche called absorption, whereas prior in only concrete, it's been deflection on the road. So performance, and then the cost, you mentioned the cost. I think pretty simplistically, our goal is to try to, as we're competing with the virgin material of concrete, we've got to show a recycled material that has a better pricing in terms of producing a product that's cost competitive. So we've worked really hard to focus on the cost side, and we can get into it, how we're implementing that.
Very good. And then Tim, is cost and availability the primary reasons why ground tire rubber is such a good fit for your products at SafePath?
Yes, that's some of the reasons. Some of our single-use products can be up to 2,000 pounds for just one door application, and other projects can be 18,000 pounds. And now we're dealing with and competing against steel, aluminum, concrete, wood, all of those other materials that you mentioned earlier. So they have to be more affordable for us to even be in the space. So that's the one reason that recycled tire material is, and it's so shapeable, if you will. If you have your designs down, you can actually mold and insert things for applications that other things would have to be all custom made for.
Excellent. Bruce, coming back to you, how did you enter the molded and extruded products market?
Well, with Liberty, we're currently engaged through 3 divisions in the molded market. IMC Outdoor Products, we mold, lawn edging, paver tiles, swing mats, things of that nature. We also have BAS out in California who molds playground tiles. And then through Rubber Recycle, we distribute multiple molded products from various vendors and processors that we work with. So basically through those three divisions.
And how does this market, this molded and extruded market, compare in size to the other markets you work with, like rubber modified asphalt or synthetic turf?
We see it as a growing market. I don't know if I could really put a percentage on it, but certainly, because there's different ways to value it, right? There's the value of the materials and there's the volume of the materials. So when you think of Liberty and all the various, markets that we're in, whether it's infill or TDF, things of that nature, it's certainly not the volume size of that, but it's an important size and it's certainly a market that we see developing.
Tim, do you also continue to see this market growing?
Yes, we're constantly adding new products to the marketplace. As you know, we manufacture transition ramps, reducers, landings, either non-ADA or ADA compliant ones. One of the things that we really look at as some of the benefits here, as I mentioned before, there's others, and one of them is the SCOF rating. Is that our testing shows that we have incredible non-slip or anti-slip or slip-resistant materials
Right.
that, and with static coefficient of friction, really makes a difference. We have products that have grades of 5% to 20%. And there's different types of slopes, and so with all of those slope grades, we're concerned about the safety of our customers. So having something that's competing against, as I mentioned earlier, aluminum, concrete, wood, something that has a non-slip surface on it or slip-resistant surface is really a positive and necessary thing for our customer base.
Thank you. So we're talking about a significant and growing market here. And one of the reasons for that is that commercial products made from ground tire rubber are very unique in their durability, and they have impact absorbing properties because they're elastomeric. So let's dive into those unique performance benefits of ground tire rubber and specific applications. And Tim, you were just diving into that distinct point of view you have on this, and you were talking specifically about the static coefficient of friction, and that is an element, a unique property that is particular to your niche.
Yes, way back in the day, 9 years ago, I saw the properties of recycled tire material and how they really provided a good, safe surface. So that was the first bell that went off as being the material choice for making products for a growing market of the elderly population. So with that, we move forward. Again, you have to have something that is good in inclement weather conditions, in ice and snow. I mean, these are products that are used everyday use. They have to be safe. And so that's one of the properties that recycled tire materials bring. And we also have ASTM. Everyone has their different ASTM tests, but there's the C1028s and of the world, and we get those tested by experts, and they're used with running shoes and high heels and walking up grades and in harnesses and checking for. I mean, it's an extensive. It's a fun. If you're a nerd, it's great to listen to, but it's how they do it. But it's really neat, and to come back with scores that are as high. Rubber can bring in 95% dry, and when the limit is 10. So
Thanks.
Gives you an idea.
Thanks, Tim. Now, Jeff, you're dealing with a whole different ball game, but still on the properties of this unique material, ground tire rubber. What specific benefits do you see for it in your application? You started touching on this a moment ago.
Yeah, we were the first to produce a barrier of that size. Each barrier is over a ton or around a ton. And when we got into, there's the off-road applications of barriers and barricades, and then there's the on-road, which everyone thinks of. And to be on the road, we were also the first rubber barrier ever to be certified for use on U.S. roadways by the U.S. Department of Transportation, and that involves crash testing. So in our initial crash tests and working with the facilities that perform those tests, and we had to explain to them that we're not concrete. It was kind of an internal joke because they in their simulation work with us to try to accelerate our prototyping, they were seeing characteristics that were, not complete deflection. There was an absorption and a deflection sort of sweet spot we were trying to find. And so we passed in 2024, we passed low speed crash testing. And this December, we'll be passing high speed crash testing, which is sort of it's kind of like the scoring a run in baseball. It's the final stake in sort of a huge market that's going to open up for us once we pass high-speed crash testing. We've had to play around with the material science and some of the design characteristics, but we're bringing in an absorption characteristic to an industry that's never had that. So it's exciting for us. The transportation directors and departments of transportation procurement people are interested in the safety aspects of rubber on the highway.
Still on the performance benefits, let me go to you, Bo. How does recycled rubber help balance performance and safety and sustainability in the flooring and other products that Ecor makes?
Yeah, listen, we're all sort of singing off a similar song sheet, right? I mean, the power of rubber is amazing. When we put it into, a lot of people think about molding, and a lot of the products that we do make are compression molded, tiles, and we're very pronounced in the fitness world. And similar to what Jeff was saying, I mean, we've got this unique balance that we talk about that's a little bit different, but we're talking about the ability of our surfaces to reduce force of impact. But then also we balance that with energy restitution, right? Which is the amount of, think about the amount of the force of an impact is being returned to the source of that force. So that can be something as simple as a weight dropping, which we deal with a lot. Mm-hmm. But when you're in the athlete space, we're actually talking about the athlete as well. So as that athlete is impacting the surface. So we've really been able to play off of the ability to harness this unique ability of compression molded or molded rubber to be able to force energy into that floor that allows it to sort of balance anything that's on top of it and supporting all the activities that are on top of it. And that really plays to our three foundational attributes in flooring, which is acoustics, ergonomics, and safety. And, I wanted to jump back to what Tim said earlier, because one of the things that we really talk a lot about is that coefficient of friction. And a lot of people overlook that in their products. But in a lot of cases, the products that we're creating out of composition rubber, was kind of how we refer to it. The coefficient of friction is actually very pronounced, both wet and dry, which is funny because that's what people miss a lot about fitness is, a lot of things are being spilt on the floor, and the ability, similar to outdoors with rain and the other things that are happening, that creates a surface that's really uniquely safe, not just for mitigating injuries related to fall, but actually mitigating the number of falls themselves, which is something that Tim sort of referred to.
Bruce, are you aware of any other benefits that we haven't brought up here, unique performance benefits to ground tire rubber and ground tire rubber products?
No, I think the guys have all hit on three different unique ones. I would say there's probably a dozen more out there that we haven't even thought of yet. Because it seems like every time somebody comes up with something new, it's for one of those reasons or a different reason like that, right? It's like, wow, I didn't know we could do this with tire rubber. So I can't think of a specific one off my head, but I think these are all three great examples of that.
Thanks, guys. This is a really nice analysis. We've talked now about the performance benefits of ELTs for molded and extruded products, but what about the sustainability benefits? Has the fact that this is helping to reduce scrap tire piles and the volume of tires in landfills made a compelling case for adoption of these products with state regulators and engineers and manufacturers and facility managers? Tim, let's start with you.
Well, it's really interesting. There's a very limited number of states that require the purchase of recycled tire material. As a matter of fact, notably California is one under their SABRAC rules, And New Jersey, I think, has one. There's a couple southern states, but there's no real teeth into it. It's just like a recommendation. So if there was more state agencies requirement for purchasing recycled tire products, I think we'd see an uptick in the use of these tires and the acceptance. And we all have the specifications to show them that they work just as well, if not better, than some of the materials that they're buying right now. And just to underscore that point, please stop letting, I mean, I saw New Jersey road barriers or something coming, not in New Jersey, but a road barrier coming into, I think it was Oakland, and they were purchased in England. I mean, why are we purchasing things outside of the country when we have manufacturers right here using our waste tires?
That's not only a buy recycled, but a buy American kind
That's
of
right.
perspective.
Both.
Bruce, have you seen sustainability of this material as an impactful selling point?
I'm sure that we as Liberty and any processor recycler would like to see more credit, or better yet, more revenue given for the sustainability side, but unfortunately, no. It's usually about the quality of the materials, as we were just previously discussing. The volume of the material obviously comes into play a lot of times. Do you have the consistent tonnage required in whatever market you're in? And then also the price. It just comes down to price, like the guys were talking earlier. It's got to be competitive with whatever it's replacing or whatever would like to replace it. So unfortunately, no, but I do think, and I'm proud to say at Liberty, that's one thing we focus on is getting the word out there that these are sustainables. And I always encourage anybody that's in our industry to really promote the fact that these are tire-derived products.
Jeff, what do you see on the sustainability cost comparison between materials like concrete and ground tire rubber?
Well, I think, we have a sort of an internal mantra, performance, price, and planet. And we try to hit performance, operationally with the product itself, performance around the pricing, which we're going to make some big moves here in the upcoming year around that as well. And then, the planetary aspect, pollution reduction, waste diversion, decarbonization, circularity in our state. We can get into the policy side, are trying to advance circular products. That's a narrative that kind of appeals to anyone. It kind of makes sense. When you see a can, on the parking lot asphalt, you pick it up because instinctively that can is going to be turned into another can. We want to do the same in our industry with tires. Maybe it might be a different product, won't be tires, but that circularity aspect. And so we found great traction advancing in a kind of a public-private partnership around the circular aspects. We move 70,000 tires per mile, upcycling 70,000 tires per mile. Every 12 million tires we recycle, we can reduce carbon emissions by 1 billion pounds. So all of that is there, but it's almost icing on the cake. You got to deliver the burrito, as I call it, first, and then the chips are all the environmental merit.
And what was that you said, a billion pounds?
Yeah, every 12 million tires we upcycle into barriers that replace concrete barriers. We reduce carbon emissions by 1 billion pounds. Our material is 283% less emission producing than concrete. So for those that are interested, and that's generally in the private sector, we have data centers as an example. Data centers are purchasing our products. Data centers use a lot of energy, a lot of emissions. They're attracted to our offset.
I see. Now, Bo, still looking at this sustainability cost perspective, how does recycled rubber compare to a traditional material like virgin rubber?
We uniquely are making, virgin rubber as well to mix in a lot of cases with our recycled products. And uniquely, the performance is the same, from virgin rubber to recycled rubber. Really the ability to control color and to fight some of the challenges that we have in the flooring space, which is, we have designers and aesthetics becomes a play in our space. So, unlike maybe a barrier on a road, we've got a lot of people that want to see color and texture and pattern and all sorts of things. So we do fight that. But what I would say that we struggle with on this sustainability front is unfortunately, instead of getting credit for a lot of what we're doing and the massive impact that everybody on this call is having on the environment, I think we still face more headwinds than we do tailwinds as it relates to the word sustainability and environmental. I think we're still fighting a lot of headwinds with perceptions that exist out there that kind of limit the use, or in a lot of cases, it's perception more than reality, but there's a lot of perceptions out there in the interiors world that sort of limit the use of this product. And I think that if we could flip that script, it would get really interesting for all of us, because I think that's probably the biggest challenge that we have in seeing our products that perform equally to a comparable virgin product. And instead of getting credit for that, we're actually in some cases getting penalized.
I see. Sticking with sustainability costs, costs can also be measured beyond dollars and cents in terms of time and durability. Tim, what do you see on the compliance and cost effectiveness of recycled rubber in terms of durability and other factors?
Well, we have a joke around here that I say we're not selling insulin, but it feels like it sometimes because people need these products so much for their opening of their building or of their apartment complex. I mean, I can't tell you how many times we've first class sent out ramps, on an airplane to New York. I mean, it's one of those things that where we can provide federal compliance and state compliance in sometimes a matter of minutes, where otherwise it would take hours or days. And that's one of the advantages that we have with the use of recycled tire material.
Excellent.
John, I'll give you a quick example just of an organization where sustainability does matter. We are very close to the Denver International Airport. They've got a stated goal to be the most sustainable airport in the world. So obviously, we've had them to our facility, and they've been a tremendous supporter of utilizing our barriers in their airport setting. But for them, that was in their decision matrix of procurement, was sustainability. It's not always in the decision matrix.
Right. That's very true. Cost is still the major driver in all of this. But like the burrito analogy you mentioned, these other side benefits of sustainability and such, buy American, buy recycled, these all can come into play as well. Let's look at things a little differently for a couple moments, because life isn't all roses out there. And one criticism of ground tire rubber feedstock is that it could possibly have inconsistencies in particle size or mixture compositions, which can lead to product performance variability. Have you seen this as an issue, and how do you correct this? Bruce, let's start with you.
Well, I think there's certainly some avenues out there to help us with regards to standardization and specifications, things like ASTM standards that were mentioned earlier. Those are always very helpful. I think the challenge, though, is when you're trying to identify where and how the materials are being utilized across such a wide range of products, processes, manufacturing processes. So when you start looking at all those different challenges, then you have to take into account the cost. Is the material going to be a 50 mesh material that's got to be devulcanized and put into an injection molded grade compound? Or is it simply a 20 mesh material that has to be fairly fiber free so you can mix some urethane with it and mold something? Those are two very different ends of the spectrum, right? And then along in there, you have the other challenges with colors and things like that. So I would say that's certainly a challenge, but I think there are ways to get there. And it's just going to take more of these products and more of these manufacturers of the products, to help us as processors identify what the standards for making those raw materials are. That was kind of a long answer, but
you've talked before about clarity in standards. And while there is an ASTM standard out there, typically in business today, buyers and sellers write their own standards, and the clarity on those standards is critical to providing the right material for the right applications. Bo, how have you solved for this consistency problem at Ecor. I know you guys manufacture some of your own crown tire rubber yourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny you bring this up because I'm actually just visiting at a conference over in Cologne, which is in the sports and recreation space, and I'm seeing a lot of manufacturers from around the world that aren't really doing a great job at what we're talking about. And I think one of the things we try and do is if we're designing a product, you've got to have the right materials going into the product to get the right outcome, right? And that's not unlike any other flooring material. I mean, you've got manufacturers that are building simple LVT to go in someone's home, and there's just different quality standards, and different manufacturers aspire to different levels of quality. I think that I think one of the things that we try and do is make sure that we're putting the right products into the right material into the right product to get the right outcome. And I think in a lot of cases we do run up against especially competitors from abroad who are bringing in products that they say are similar, or they say meet a similar standard that just don't. And in any industry, there's going to be that challenge of kind of keeping people, playing by the rules, if you will. But I think one of the biggest things that we'll continue to do is make sure that we set a precedent, and like the other guys on this call, make high quality products so that when people buy these products, they get a great outcome, and that doesn't tarnish the industry at large with some of these negative perceptions that are happening out there. Because in a lot of cases, the companies in the U.S. that are creating products aren't creating the negative perceptions that are happening in the marketplace.
Right, I know what you're saying. Jeff, another challenge is the sourcing of materials and limitations associated with demand. Can you talk more about that issue overall, and also address what organizations and states are doing to address this? Muted.
Yeah, thank you, John. We started out in Colorado, building a product that was, 2,000 pounds, and not that, the only reason we started in Colorado is because we live here. Moving that sort of weight around the country, logistics and waste. I learned pretty quickly that waste is a business of logistics, and so because of our volume, because we use a ton of material, we're moving about 100,000 pounds a day through our facility. That's 50 barriers. And our goal is to get up to 200,000 pounds of material a day. That's 100 barriers. So between 50 and 100 barriers. So that's a lot of material. And so we launched, and we were unable to find a material producer, a crumb rubber processor in the state that could meet our demand. So we then began to import that material, from out of state to the in-state. You can imagine the economics of that. And we were working pretty closely with the state, who was advancing circular waste across all waste. And we said, hey, what if we could in our state and come at it from an economic development standpoint? I think that's another, opportunity for all of us in the industry is to promote sort of these new growth markets from an economic development perspective. Like, states should think of waste as economic development opportunities and job creating opportunities. And so we in Colorado had some tremendous partners who really saw the vision. And we're going to be, getting near 100 employees come this time next year, probably, as we bring in that processing in the state. That's that grant you mentioned, is to bring in the processing side. So we will be able to turn 5 to 6 million tires a year in one line to make barriers. So we'll have a tire come in one side of our facility, process it, and a barrier leave. And that's what you all will see at the Scrap Tire Conference in May, if you come, is that kind of one-stop shop. So for us, logistics were critical, bringing it in state, and we're having a partner on the public side who saw the vision through the lens of economic development. So we feel very fortunate to be Coloradans and working with Colorado, and it's kind of a playbook we're trying to replicate with other states and countries.
I'm going to come back to you on that policy, that circular environmental policy that is being developed in Colorado. But before I move on to that, Tim, did you have anything else to add about challenges regarding sourcing of materials and limitations?
We have limitations really come in the form of expense with the processing plants. We have people trying to start processing plants here in California, and through the powers that be, the regulatory agencies, the permitting agencies, very, very difficult to get more of those programs going. In other words, they're not making it easy for us, I don't believe. And that's the word I'm getting from guys that are investing lots of money trying to start processing plants in California and are simply not having any real good fortune out of that.
I see. Bruce, what are your thoughts about the sourcing challenge and solutions?
Well, I think from my experience, working both my roles prior to Liberty and at Liberty, what I see is anybody that's doing these types of molded products has a challenge if they're not near a full, what I would call a full line processor. There are many processing plants. We have many, there's independents out there that can process a whole tire. They can shred it up and grind it down. But if they can't make the specific rubber that you're looking for, that's the challenge. And when you're looking at some of these companies that are producing, whether it's a TDF or even rubber mulch, and they're doing it in thousands of tons a year, and then somebody like Tim comes along, which has a great product, but might only need 200 tons a year, the capex to go from a rubber nugget to that fine rubber material is huge, as Tim was just alluding to. So just because there's a processor in the area doesn't mean you can always get the needed materials. Now, that said, at Liberty, we like to think we can help our customers everywhere, and we try to. So there are some ways around it, but at the end of the day, rubber's heavy. So getting it processed to the size you need near the location you want to mold it is always going to be a challenge.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, Bruce brings up a great point that, the CapEx, the equipment required to take that material down to a smaller size, is almost 10x the cost of making a big chunked tire. So we were involved with the state in trying to solve that economic riddle, which we can get into here in a moment. But
let's do that right now, because you're touching on policy, and this is a hurdle that you're hurdling over right now. And we're looking for big things when the new plant comes online this spring.
Yeah. So we did a couple things in Colorado that I think can be used anywhere around the world and in states is, and the idea of grants versus rebates. I don't really like the word subsidy. You're paying for an outcome, right? You're paying for some sort of outcome, be it a disposal outcome or an upcycling outcome. Now, the question is do you want to pay for disposal, or do you want to pay for something that's maybe, higher up the food chain in terms of reuse and circularity? And so Colorado has been a leader in a rebate approach, a per ton rebate approach to different sort of tiers of outcomes. And we worked with the state to say, hey, if there is a end use that is circular, that should be in the top tier. And right now it's $100 a ton as an example. We have a new enterprise board that just is working through those tiers. But for the top outcome, the highest outcome, these are state priorities. How do you pay that operational ongoing capital and operational cost to upcycle that material and paying for an outcome? And states are understanding that we want to do something better than throw it away. And we will never be able to compete and beat on price just pure disposal. So if you can understand that at a baseline and say, okay, it might cost just a little more to upcycle the material, that's where these rebates or reimbursements, or what I like to call pay for performance, pay for outcomes, where we were able to implement in Colorado. So when we implement our facility next year, we'll be getting that top tier rebate per ton as we produce material and turn it into barriers. So I'm taking that playbook right now and working with another state on exactly that.
And Colorado has made a firm policy determination on what markets they want to support and how they want to radically change the tire industry, the tire recycling industry in the state towards a circular economy.
You bet. Yeah, that's the narrative that they try to deliver governance through is a circular narrative, which helps their decision making and board governance and so forth. So
yes. So let's look at what's happening to expand the use of ground tire rubber in the market. Tim, can you talk a little bit about the recent advancements in odor reduction for molded and extruded products and how that's helped advance this market?
Yes, we've been working on for quite some time developing a coating technology that can cover up recycled tire material and actually adhere to it. With the paraffins and the oil, all of you probably recognize how difficult that can be, other than some of the more standard processes. So getting a good, true sealed coat has been a challenge. However, we're excited about it because it does reduce the rubber. Reduces the odor that might be considered not appropriate for maybe a clean room, a hospital room, something like that. Also, we're working on products to repair sidewalks in this country for compliance, and that would include a colored product, so it's not just a black, it doesn't look like asphalt laying down on the road. So those are some of the things that we're working on to eliminate any off gassing that would have. It also helps prevent foreign substances also entering into the pores of the material itself. But it's a sludge because it's not really cheap. So
Yeah.
the idea is if it was if we could get it to be a more of affordable process, we can't. It's rather complex, but it does work. So we're left with our working on that with our partners, and so we'll see. I'm excited about it for the future.
Thanks, Tim. Bo, could you describe the benefits you've seen from the marketing and selling of some uniquely branded products made with recycled rubber, like the Fit Collection, those original fitness mats used in exercise rooms and such, or the True Vinyl composite material?
Right. One of the things, and this kind of leads off us where Tim was going, one of the things that we did is, this is working on about 15 years ago now, was we created some patented technology that allowed us to actually fuse a surface layer to a vulcanized composition rubber base layer. So that's us molding rubber into big cylinders and peeling that into rolls and then fusing different types of surfaces to that. And it's really interesting because a lot of people would never think about a recycled tire going into a hospital or to a senior living facility. And we're actually fusing, surfaces together. And we've got products that are going into acute care, senior living, into corridors, into clean rooms, into all sorts of places. And that's really just a function of thinking differently about how you can use this material, this amazing material. Because what's interesting about it is we're not just riding rubber into that space. The rubber is increasing the value of the floor. And in some cases, we're selling our product, which is a vinyl surface with, rubber on the back at a significant premium in the marketplace. And people are starting to see the value of these types of products in the marketplace. And I think that allows for not just doing a good job with rubber, but just completely expanding the way people think about this recycled product and where it can go. Because some of the limitations we used to have with what you call the Fit Collection is it was just it went into a certain application, and that application is growing, don't get me wrong. But with some of these patented technologies, we're expanding the mindset of where these products can go, and where they can add performance characteristics to existing floors.
Right. And you've talked about two types of growth. One, the organic growth of existing markets, and then that might be the older Fit Collection, and then the new products, the accretive type of growth, where you're using the material for its amazing properties and new niches.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I really focus on in my world is how can we change the perception of this product and where it goes, completely shifting the game about what this material can be. I think the accretive growth has been that's been really fun for us. And we at eCore, one of the things we really focus on is helping everyone on this call. We all need to make money, and we don't hide from that, right? If we continue to try and force a narrative that is about downcycling or recycling, it doesn't tend to have the positive karma of something that's, earth-shattering and revolutionary and innovative. And I think that's one of the things that we're trying to focus on, because people are willing to pay for performance, and rubber performs well. And if we can continue as an industry to change that game and shift that narrative, people will pay us for this product, as opposed to us trying to convince them to buy this thing, right? And I think that's a lot of what we try and focus on.
Beautiful. And you're absolutely right. It's got to be economical to fit within the realm of sustainability, socially sustainable, environmentally sustainable, and economically sustainable. Let's talk about stronger collaborations between municipalities, regulators, recyclers, suppliers, and manufacturers. Bruce, what have these type what roles have these partnerships played in growing the market? I understand Liberty, for example, has a partnership with Walmart.
Well, I think when you look at both the retail partnerships as well as the supply chain partnerships that we have with our clients, that are making these products, those are all very good things, and they continue to expand every day and help grow the industry. I mean, I think back 20 years ago when I first got into all these tires, there weren't these molded products out there, right? I mean, there was some compression molding, but for the most part, the things Ecor is doing, or certainly the stuff Jeff and Tim are working on, that wasn't even thought about then. So it is through these collaborations that we've been able to get to this point. And then with our retail partners, also take it out to the general market and do the sustainability thing, but also just it's a good product thing, right? So those collaborations I feel pretty good about. I guess when you talk about all the different groups you mentioned there, if there was one I'd like to see more collaboration with, it would actually be with the tire manufacturers. Because when they're introducing new materials, whether it's a Kevlar or a run flat material, or the latest thing, the RFD transmitters that have the lithium batteries in them, when those things come into the tire market, to the processors, that creates problems for everybody. From the actual processing of the tire down to the materials that might flow through to our the guys that we're supplying the materials to, right? They don't want some of those things in there. So when it comes to collaboration, if there was an area that I'd like to see more collaboration with, it would actually be with the tire manufacturers. So we have some idea of what we're processing.
Really appreciate that comment, Bruce. And you can be sure that's going to be addressed at the conference in Denver, the 10th Tire Recycling Conference, May 13th and 14th. And there'll be other initiatives within the construct of green design coming down the road here too. Let me ask.
Way to get a nice plug in there for the conference, Tim.
There's more to come there, Bruce. Can any of you point to any initiatives that have helped drive the increased use of ground tire rubber in molded and extruded products, like EPA guidance or specific market subsidies that may have helped accelerate market growth? Any specific examples?
Well, I'll go back to what I've already spoken to in Colorado. The enacting of the Colorado Sustainability Act was kind of an umbrella act that replaced the 1992 Prevention Pollution Act, but the governance framework was circularity, and inside that they established what is known as the Circular Economic Development Center. The Colorado, I can get that information to you to distribute, but the Circular Economic Development Corporation of Colorado really became the brain trust for the boards and the programs to do their due diligence around circular waste. But they came at it through the lens of economic development. And I think that's the point I wanted to make is the more we can speak performance, to Bo's point, and economic development, I think that's the language of business. And we obviously offer all of the benefits to the planet. But if we can lead with economic development and performance, I think we've got blue skies ahead.
So let's look down the road a bit, down the horizon. As each of you think about where you like to see this market in 5 years, what do you see? Jeff, you had some statistics in your planning. Let's start with you.
Yeah, very simply, our goal is 6 to 8 facilities around the U.S. and Canada, and each facility minimum of 5 million tires upcycled into barriers. That's per line. We can go more lines, and so if you do the math on 6 to 8 facilities, our target is 30 to 40 million tires recycled, and that's about 10% of the problem. So if we can stay in our lane and execute and do that, we will have done a good thing, I think.
And Tim, how about you?
Yeah, I've got an answer for that, but I just want to step back a bit. California has its Cal Recycle program and our tire grant program as well. And that has been going on for many, many, many years. We're in like tip 14 or whatever it is right now. So that's helpful for those of us that are making finished products in the marketplace. But I love the economic development idea and bringing that in so that we could advance how we work together other than just, a grant program necessarily. I think there needs to be a greater emphasis around that. So thank you, Jeff, for that. To answer your question, to grow this market a little bit, Bruce is the one that brought this up to me years ago, and that is to have injection molding is probably going to be the way we move. However, for me, we have so many SKUs that to get an injection mold for all of them would be cost prohibitive, and I don't think we could financially make that work in the marketplace. However, if you are involved in making products that are in high volume, I see that being as a real the advancement of recycled tire material in the future because of the speed and the cost effectiveness of that stuff. So, but again, it requires volume, and again,
Right.
those molds are expensive.
Bo, what do you see?
It's really interesting. I think one of the things that we want to focus on is there's a gap between supply and demand, right? And I think that one of the things we want to focus on is selling. It's sort of a simple answer, but we want to invest in telling our collective story better in the marketplace. And one of the things that we've really focused on around casting a vision is really touching on an end-of-life opportunity for the customer, where legislation hasn't necessarily worked for all of us, and Jeff is working great in Colorado for you. It tends to be a little bit of a challenge. So we're really taking the battle directly to the end user with an end-of-life commitment on our part that we will take back any product that we're selling at the end of life, right? And really forcing a conversation with, said customer, end-use customer, to say, let's talk about end of life. And not just end of life of our products, but also really focusing on the fact that our collective products, everything that we're doing on this call is coming from an end of life, right? End of life tires. And I think that's trying to connect that circle. And so we're going to go kind of old fashioned and just try and sell our way out of this, create value with customers and a better conversation.
Innovation. Bruce, what do you hope to see for this market 5 years out?
I guess my biggest goal would be to do more what like Jeff has done in terms of volumes. I mean, one of the challenges, everybody, all the processors have their own challenges, but when you think of the volume of tires that we recycle at Liberty, it's volumes, right? So when we can replace concrete, when we can replace plastics, one of my big hopes is I'm a big believer. I think the technology is right around the corner to be able to do basically rubber plywood, right? And when you think of all the trailers and boats and everything that uses plywood, building materials, I think there's a huge opportunity in building materials. So, but it's got to be volume driven. The niche markets are great. Like Tim said, making 1 million little bottle caps or something out of rubber, that's nice. It doesn't put a dent in our tire supply. We need big projects and big volumes. And that's where I really hope to see the industry head more towards.
Thanks, Bruce. And to our audience, if you've got questions, please use the Q&A function at the top of the screen to send those in. And we'll go to our last question with our panel this afternoon. In our audience today, we've got folks who represent all facets of the value chain. Tim, what's one piece of advice you'd give them for identifying new opportunities to use recycled rubber and molded and extruded products, perhaps in the infrastructure planning audience?
One of the things that I think that there's a difficulty in that we're missing the mark, and that is being able to locate recycled tire products, especially U.S. manufactured products. The only catalog I know is the Cal Recycle TDP catalog that Denise Kennedy put together. Other than that, I'm doing AI searches for these products right now, and they're not making the mark. There's not a resource. An architect will come along and go, oh, this works for me. Oh, it's also made out of recycled tire material. Great. But that's not the source that they're finding it or looking for it. And if you're specific in an agency looking for that, then I think that's the thing you need to have, is at least have that playbook so that you can move forward with making selections of green products versus having to hunt and hopefully stumble upon them.
You mentioned the California tire-derived products guide, and we're going to link to that in our follow-up materials because it's clearly the best example out there of what kind of recycled rubber products you can find. I just got myself stuck. But marketing these products is crucial, and you have LEED certification, if I'm not mistaken,
Yes.
with some of these products because they're recycled rubber. Bo, what do you? Go ahead, Tim.
I was just saying, depending on the uniqueness of those materials and the location of that tire sourcing is what gives you those LEED credits. And a LEED credit to a builder means getting kind of in front of the line in the permitting process.
Bo, I think your products also receive some kind of LEED credits.
Oh, yeah.
What about state governments or those in procurement for municipalities? Do you have key takeaways for those folks?
You know, it's really complicated the way, in a lot of cases, you want to call attention to the product as being a recycled tire. But as I suggested earlier, some of the negative perceptions that are out there about tire rubber, it's a catch-22, right? For us, if we're promoting a product and calling attention to the fact that there's rubber, in some cases, that can be a negative. If there's certain guidelines that particular, let's say, healthcare organizations are following that may steer people away, by the way, from all rubber, not just recycled rubber. In a lot of cases, rubber as a material can be something that people shy away from. So we've sort of got to be careful. I think the one thing that we're trying to do is just, again, I know it sounds funny to say it this way, but just good old-fashioned sales and marketing and just selling our product on the merit of the value proposition that it brings, I think is overwhelming the marketplace. And I think getting to end users is also critical because in some cases, they're going to be way more thoughtful and energized to make purchasing decisions if they know that they're solving a circular problem. So I think getting to the end user is critical.
Thanks, Bo. And Bruce, what one piece of advice would you give to, say, the product development side of the house for engineers? What would you tell them?
I'm going to take a little different. I'm going to call the glass a little more than half full than what Bo's doing. I'm a big believer that whatever products we're doing, whether it's asphalt, tire-derived fuel, tire-derived aggregate, molded materials, I've never told somebody I work for Liberty Tire and I recycle tires and they go, oh, that's a horrible idea. Right, everybody loves the idea of recycled tires. It's when they get in, they find out all the different things they go into that they get really excited about it. So while I understand Bo with his products and some of the challenges that might be when you mention that, I'm a big promoter. I think the biggest thing government officials, everybody can do is promote that it's made from tires and that we have lots of tires. So I tend to think that's really a good thing and we should promote it every chance we get.
Yeah, let me step back in. I want to make sure I'm clarifying myself. Rubber is probably one of the most amazing materials that's ever been invented, whether it's recycled or not. I think what I'm trying to call attention to is we need to diminish the separation between a virgin material and a recycled material. We need to be calling attention to the fact that this stuff is amazing. What Jeff is making, what we're making, what we're all making are amazing products that form because they are rubber, whether it's reclaimed or virgin. And why would we buy a virgin rubber when we've got this amazing problem that we're solving every day by using a reclaimed version of it? it's a magical story that we need to tell for sure.
Yes. Yes.
Thanks, Bo. Now, throughout our discussion, members of our audience have been sharing questions for our panel through the Q&A. And let's run through a couple of those questions now. If we don't get to them all, we'll make sure to get your answers addressed in our post-webinar resources. So I think Amelia Chuchalowski from USTMA will join us here
Yes.
and give us the questions that we've gotten from our engaged audience.
Thanks, John. So one of them is, does the current supply of recycled rubber meet market demand? Or is there a material shortage that could justify the new investment? Sorry, I can't read that. New investment in rubber cycling operations.
Well, I think that's, I'll take a stab at it. I mean, that's going to be regional or state specific.
Right.
If you've got a pull that is a product, and you don't have a processor there to service that pull, that demand, you've got to match demand and supply. So I think it's really state specific or market specific. I don't think it's not a broad brushstroke in aggregate. It's just these hot zones, if you will, of hungry end uses that need that material. You know, you've heard our case. We had to take it on ourselves internally in state. We're open to, you know, partnering in other states, but I think it's state specific.
Bruce, any thoughts on that?
Yeah,
you guys supply a lot of crumb rubber.
Well, yeah, we supply a lot of materials of different types too, but the biggest point capacity in North America, when you look not just at Liberty, but companies like Liberty, all the independents out there, it's not getting the tires ground up. And I alluded that earlier. It's getting them to the fine materials that we need in specific geographic locations. And that's still a challenge. It's one we're certainly working on at Liberty, and we know, people like Jeff are also working on it in their own ways, and that's fine. But I think as far as processing of materials, I think we have plenty of processing on the inbound side. It's what do we do with it on the outbound side?
Yeah, it's matching up exactly.
Yes.
What kind of ground rubber, specifically, what kind of ground rubber are you looking for? And you've used language to talk about it before. Do you want all black? The mesh sizes, precisely within what range are you looking for? And so on. Amelia, let's go to question 2.
Yeah, thank you. Can you talk us through a quick total cost of ownership comparison for a common use case? And how do the aspects like install time, maintenance cost, lifespan, warranty impact that calculus versus like the concrete or virgin rubber?
Well, this question seems tailor-made for you because you're so lined up circular-wise, life cycle-wise with the products that you put out there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to dive directly into the question a little bit, but one of the things, it kind of goes back to what I said earlier. You know, if you need the performance of rubber and you're able to identify that the product solves your problem, the total cost of ownership using this is going to be less. I mean, again, why would we manufacture new rubber? You know, one of the things that we've kind of aspired to at ECOR is this vision of a world free of rubber waste. Now that's a big goal, but you know, if we can continue to create new products and do what everybody on this call is working towards, and start to work together to be more cooperators, right? So we're cooperating, but yet we may be competing in some cases, because I think what we're all struggling with is getting the right product to the right place at the right time, right? All these things are really heavy. If we work together as an industry, I think we can start moving materials a little bit more efficiently. Like, I'm intrigued hearing a couple of the conversations that are had here about how we can maybe work together a little bit better. But the total cost of ownership of not making virgin rubber and using something that was reclaimed, it sort of says it all, right? I mean, the cost, we're making virgin rubber only to create very specific colors that someone may need. If you're just looking for the performance of rubber, you can definitely do a lot better by using a reclaimed material.
Tim, do you have some insight into life cycle?
Not really, not on that particular question, since we're more of we're vertically integrated, and we just rely on our suppliers on the West Coast.
Okay.
And that's kind of where we're at.
Thank you. Amelia, do we have another question?
No, thanks, John. That's it.
Well, I want to share my sincere appreciation and thanks to our panelists for their expertise and our listeners for their time and passion and attention. There's been substantial important work as it relates to growing and expanding ELT markets, and it's informative to have a forum where we can share this innovation and collaboration happening in one space together, because effective collaboration is the only way we're going to reach 100% tire circularity. Keep your eyes on your inboxes in the coming days, and we'll be sharing a post-webinar toolkit to help equip you even further with data, insights, and tangible steps to expand molded and extruded markets in your areas of influence. And if any in our audience has specific technical questions that were not addressed today or is seeking additional technical expertise, please contact us directly, and we'll do our best to connect you with a subject matter expert who can assist you further. I hope you'll join us for our next webinar in this market series, which will take place at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on November 20th. Alongside experts in the rubber modified asphalt space, we'll be exploring the path towards sustainability and high-performing roads made from rubber modified asphalt. Panel and registration information can be found at tire-recycling-foundation.org. Finally, here's that plug, Bruce. Please take note of the Tire Recycling Foundation's 10th Tire Recycling Conference, which will be held May 12th to 14th next year in Denver, Colorado. Registration is open, and the conference is an excellent opportunity to engage with our esteemed panelists today and other subject matter experts. Organization that wants to share information about your services or products, we have exhibitor opportunities currently available. We also have sponsor opportunities. We plan to continue these important discussions and provide valuable information and insights in Denver, and we encourage your participation. If you have feedback on the webinar or additional questions for USTMA or any of our panelists, please reach out to Stephanie Mull, our Tire Recycling Foundation Executive Director, at smull@tirerecyclingfoundation.org. Thank you all for your participation and attendance today. Thanks again to our great panelists, and have a great rest of your day. Bye now.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.